Hello, everybody in Hong Kong. It is great to be with you today. I very much appreciate the invitation and I look forward to this presentation. So let me start by telling you a little bit about Seven Cups. So the Seven Cup story begins. I was, a young man. I had my own challenges growing up, and there were many mentors that looked out for me along the way. Fast forward, I became a psychologist, and many clinicians are what we call wounded healers. So people that have had some level of pain and are giving back to others to kind of help redeem that pain. So I had a startup, was going well, and I was thinking about my next startup. And I was thinking about behavior that's offline that hadn't yet moved online. So when I was a kid, learning was offline, and then it moved online. And my first startup was a learning startup. Dating was offline, then it moved online. So I was struggling and struggling. What is the behavior that's offline that hasn't yet moved online? And I'm talking to my wife, and she's a therapist, and she's listening to me. And it occurs to me that the need to talk to somebody, the need to have somebody listen to you, is the need that's offline that hasn't yet moved online. And that's when we started Seven Cups. And so this presentation is really about human connection. It's about our need to feel heard, understood, seen, and to know that we're not alone, especially in our pain and our struggles. And technology can be good or bad, just like there can be good books or bad books, good movies or bad movies. There can be technology that's not so great and technology that's good. And on Seven Cups, we strive to use technology for human connection, healing, and growth. Now, what we're really trying to do is to help solve the global mental health crisis. And we really think there's just too much demand. There's lots and lots of need, and there's not enough clinicians or therapists to meet the demand. So as a consequence, we need a new model. We need a new way of looking at the problem so we can solve it. This is another way of illustrating the supply and demand problem. So especially post-COVID, there's all this demand, people that really, really need a lot of help. And in our current systems, clinicians or therapists or psychologists are really the only folks that can help. And as a consequence, we're not able to help as many people as we like. Now, in the Seven Cups model, we have the same rising demand, but we have volunteers plus clinicians plus technology. And this is very expensive. That's inexpensive or affordable. And as a consequence, we can help many, many more people. Now, on our platform, we use technology in multiple ways to connect people. One is through listening, which I'll highlight in a second. And so active listening, when you're going through a hard time and you really need somebody to listen to you, to hear you, they do something called active listening, which is they paraphrase, they summarize, they imagine themselves as you, and they share what they might be feeling. And that helps the person feel heard and understood. A second part is community. And community can consist of things like depression or anxiety, but it can also consist of things like caregiving or over 50, which I'll highlight. So just groups or forums of people interacting with each other. A third part is growth paths or treatment plans. If you're struggling with a specific issue, say you have panic attacks, and you go to see a clinician, they'll do active listening with you, but they'll also work with you to learn specific skills to help you overcome those challenges. And then the last part on the platform is clinicians. So we have several peer-reviewed published studies on the platform. We won the Stanford MedX Award, the Tech Pioneer Award, and a number of other smaller awards as well. So let me now transition to the demo so you can just see how technology can be used to connect and help people experience stronger emotional well-being. So right now what you're seeing here is this is I'm in my member account, and this is my listener account. So I'm chatting. So my kids recently went to university, and so that's been on my mind a lot. So something I might say is, I can't wait to see my kids for fall break. It'll be fun to catch up with them and see how much they've changed. I talked with my son today. about his new interest in philosophy, and also how to study so that he does well on his exams. So just this process of active listening, I would say this, and then a listener would say, would kind of repeat back or paraphrase, and sounds like it's exciting to see your son and your daughter when they come back in the fall, and that they're learning new things. Now, when you chat with a listener, you can also search for listeners by any types of issues. You can search by age, you can search by country, you can search by gender, you can search by language. So we have 500,000 trained listeners in 189 countries, providing support in 140 languages, all at no cost. They're all volunteers. You can search for listeners by topic, and then you can search for listeners by religion as well. And before you connect with a listener, you can read about them. So you can see what are their reviews. You can see the categories they focus on, their statistics, what language they speak, how many people they've helped. You can read their bio, and you can see what kind of badges they've earned or what kind of trainings they've completed on our platform. The next part of the platform is called the growth paths or the treatment plans. Now, when we're going through a hard time, we want to take things that are relatively steps or exercises that are relatively easy for us to do. I'm guilty as a psychologist of assigning too much homework. So homework that if you're already struggling is going to be hard for you to complete. So instead, on 7 Cups, we try to make exercises really brief and really simple. So this one says, hey, focus on the positive. List 2 things that you did well in the last few days. So I went on a big run yesterday with my wife, which was good. And right now I'm doing this demo, which I think is going okay. So I'm going to say those are 2 things I did well, and I'm going to continue on my growth path. And now you can see I'm on to my next step. And if I wanted to choose a different growth path, then I could choose any of these expert growth paths or these premium growth paths to address different areas or topics that I'm struggling with. There's also mindfulness activities. And then the last component I'll highlight here is this idea of forums or communities. So you can see when you're chatting with folks, you can chat individual or one-on-one. So these are different types of connections. Here's another one. This is called a sharing circle, where people share and then everybody also celebrates with them and gives them encouragement and support about what's happening in their life. And they just welcomed me here in my listener account. And I'm just going to say thank you. On my member account, I'm just going to say thank you. And so what happens is people need support and they need connection. And so they get connection through one-to-one chat. They get connection through groups. They get connection through forums as well. And forums can be on different areas and different topics and different peer groups. And so I'll highlight some here. So for example, one area is family and caregivers, which is kind of a common topic. So you can see people post. Here's another one on disability support. And you can see they have things like a weekly check-in. So somebody might say, hey, here's the weekly check-in, chime in and share what's happening. And then other people will also chime in and support you. Here's a weekly prompt for the anxiety group. So these folks are saying, visualize to actualize exercise to deal with stress. And there's an exercise, in a funny GIF. And then there's people that also share kind of comments and support other folks in the process. Here's one for a 50 and over community. And you can see they have different discussions and topics that they lead. And these are all done in the support room. So a person will come in and say, hey, we're going to have a guided discussion on how mental health affects self-esteem. And so somebody will present some ideas, and just like the sharing circle you saw earlier here, other people will chime in and share what's happening and what they're thinking about. The last couple things I'll highlight here is the feed. So just like Instagram or Facebook or whatever social network you use, they all have feeds. And normally these feeds are used to keep you on the site longer and generate more advertising revenue. We use the feed to try to best help people. So you tell us the issue that you're struggling with, we know your age, and then we try to get you the most therapeutic and helpful content, the content that we think is going to help you feel better and make the most progress in your life. The last thing I'll highlight is the use of AI. So many of you know that, AI is all the rage and getting more and more popular on a routine basis. So now we're in my listener account. This is my listener account. This is me here. And we're talking to my member account, the person I was, this is the account I use when I'm seeking help. And so you can see my message here as I just talked with my son today about his new interest. So let's say I'm talking with a member as a listener, and I'm unsure how to respond. What I can do is I can press this button, and our artificial intelligence bot, our AI, will generate a response for me. Now, I can't copy and paste it, but I can use it. I can use this as inspiration in my own words. So you can see the AI says, it sounds bittersweet to miss your kids, but also to be proud of their achievements so far at college. Transition can be tough, but your kids are lucky to have your support. How are you balancing caring for them while letting them find their own path? So I can use this reflection here in my own words back to my member self to provide more care. And another way we use AI is through our own chatbot. So we have a chatbot called Noni, and that means healing plant or grandmother. And she also provides support. So you can see I was talking about this Taoist concept of Wu Wei the other day, and testing this AI's knowledge of it versus another AI's knowledge of it. So you have support. So if we zoom back, what we can see from this perspective is that we need technology, or we can use technology to help feel connected to one another, to help ourselves feel heard, understood, seen, and to know we're not alone, and that it is indeed possible to leverage technology to facilitate human connection, healing, and growth. Thank you again for the opportunity to present to you all. I appreciate it. And my information, excuse me, I should have done this earlier. If you would like to reach me, is glen.moriarty@7cups.com. That's glen.moriarty@7cups.com. Thank you so much. Have a good rest of the day. Take care.
So welcome to my talk about advanced technologies on neurorehabilitation for people with neurological deficits. My name is Christoph Guger. I'm coming from g.tec Medical Engineering. That's a company based in Austria in Europe. And in the past years, we used our recovery system. That's a medical product to treat stroke patients and also persons with multiple sclerosis with brain-computer interface technology. So here on the image, you can see actually one patient equipped with the brain-computer interface. The patient is sitting in front of a computer screen. The computer screen is actually giving the instruction to the person what he should do. So in this case, the person is supposed to imagine a foot movement. The brain-computer interface is able to pick it up that the person is now doing this foot movement imagination. And then we trigger a functional electrical stimulation in real time. This leads to much better movements. So in the past years, we were running different clinical studies. The first clinical study was about upper extremity stroke rehabilitation. And here in the video, you can actually see the procedure that we are using for that. So we have 16 EEG electrodes mounted over the sensory motor cortex of the patient. And then the patient is instructed to imagine a left-hand movement. The brain-computer interface picks it up, and then we apply electrical stimulation of the left muscle so that we actually get the dorsiflexion of the left hand. And it's randomized. So the next one is actually the paretic hand. You can see the patient imagines the right hand movement, the functional electrical stimulation is done, and also the paretic hand is lifted up. And this is a healthy hand movement again. In one treatment session, we are repeating this 25 times, 240 times, and the patient has to come back for 25 sessions. One session takes about 1 hour. So this means we get about 25 hours of treatment done for every single stroke patient. And you can also see that the electrical stimulation is ongoing for about 4 seconds. So there is a nice dorsiflexion produced by the brain-computer interface. And here's already an outcome after 25 recovery sessions of a subacute stroke patient. So we are doing many different tests to figure out how much these patients are improving. And in this case, on the left-hand side, we can see the 9-hole peg test before recovery, and on the right-hand side, we can see the 9-hole peg test after the 25 recovery sessions. So this is a pretty complicated test for a patient who had a paralyzed hand or at least a handicapped hand. So you can see in this case, the left hand was affected by the stroke, and then you have to use 2 fingers to get the little sticks. Then you have to lift it, you have to rotate the hand, and you also have to insert the little peg into the certain position. So it's a pretty demanding task for somebody a few months after the stroke. Now he made a mistake, as you can see on the right-hand side. So he's also not cheating. So he starts from the beginning again. And now he has to remove the little pegs and put it back. And you can just see how much better the fine and gross motoric skills are after the recovery treatment. This is exactly what we want to produce with the recovery system. And here's another patient who is actually in chronic state. So this is a few years after the stroke. Pretty young lady. In this case, we are doing the box and block test. And you can see on the left-hand side again, before the recovery treatment, and on the right-hand side, the box and blocks test after the recovery treatment. So you can just see very nicely how much better she can get the little blocks and lift it over the barrier in the middle and drop it on the other hand side. This is again what we see in our patients, and altogether we did a group study with 51 patients. 25 recovery sessions. You can see we have a highly significant reduction of spasticity in the wrist and fingers. This is also what we normally see. First of all, the spasticity has to go away, and then the fine and gross motoric skills are coming back. And this is measured with the Vogel-Meyer assessment for the upper extremities. So our physiotherapists makes different tests with every single patient. You can also see we have a highly significant improvement for these patients. The study was done actually with chronic patients. And this is very nice because we even see the improvements 10, 20, or even 30 years after the stroke happened. And the effect is also long-lasting. So we are also doing a post-assessment 1 month later and also 6 months later. And even 6 months later, the patients are a little bit better because when they stop the recovery therapy, the brain is healthier. We produce neuroplasticity, and afterwards they are using limbs more in daily life. So this is training muscles, and at the end, they are even better. And after the upper extremity study, we did also a clinical study for lower extremities. In this case, you can see the stroke patient seated again in front of a computer screen, but now we are showing this little avatar inside a mirror so that the patient has the impression to see himself. And then he has to imagine left hand movement, right hand movement versus left foot movement. This is now a foot movement imagination. BCI system is able to pick it up from the EEG, and then we provide an electrical stimulation of the left leg. It's randomized again. So this was a right hand movement. So this is the healthy hand. And this is done to activate both hemispheres. So we want to activate the left hemisphere and also the right hemisphere. And this is just guaranteed by working with both the leg and the other hand side of hand. And this leads at the end to better coordination of the movements. And actually, these stroke patients are moving much better if they follow this procedure. On the right-hand side, you can also see the computer screen of the therapist looking at the EEG data during the therapy so that we can control everything. And here you can see an example of a chronic stroke patient. On the left-hand side, again, before recoverix, on the right-hand side, after recoverix. And we can just watch the video to see how much faster the person actually is moving. So this is the 10-meter walking test. You can see on the right-hand side, he starts much later and he reaches the target at the same time. So in this case, we see an improvement of the 10-meter walking test from 9 seconds to 6 seconds. Also for healthy people, we don't see it much better than 6 seconds for the 10 meters. And another test is the timed up and go. In this case, they are seated. They have to stand up, walk a circle, and sit down again. And also here you can see the continuous improvement of the test because of the recoverix therapy. Here's another patient. This patient was more handicapped because of the stroke, was also a couple of years after the stroke happened. She is also using a 4-point stick to walk. And on the left-hand side, she needs actually 50 seconds for the timed up and go test. On the right-hand side, she can do it in 28 seconds. So this is about half the time. And you can just nicely see in the video how much better the walking pattern is actually for her. And this is a big difference in daily life. So if you can do such a distance instead of 50 seconds within 28 seconds, you can just do much more in daily life at home. So for the lower extremity study, we looked at many different scales. For example, the modified Ashworth scale to get an idea about spasticity reduction. We did video recordings before and afterwards to have a very objective assessment. We had the time up and go test that I just showed you and the 10-meter walking test in the previous video. Then we looked also at concentration performance. We measured the degrees of freedom. And we also looked at the Patel index for daily activities. And here in the table, you can see we needed only 22 patients to show a highly significant effect. And on the right-hand side, you can see that we get significant results for every single test that we did. So spasticity is reduced, time up and go test is highly significant better, 10-meter walking test is much better. Also the concentration performance is better, range of motion increases significantly, and also daily activities get much easier, which is of course very important. Then we did also a clinical investigation. So we compared our recoverix results with 95 controlled studies, which had in total 4,458 patients included. And when we used the most successful treatment beside recoverix, which is electromechanical training with end effector training, then you can see the reach on average 0.11 meters per second. And with recoverix, we reach 0.19 meters per second. So we are outperforming the most effective treatment which is existing at the moment. And recoverix is much easier because patients are seated, so it's less risky that they are falling down. And one therapist can easily do multiple patients at the same time. So for treadmills, very often you need a couple of therapists for one patient only. And then we started also with multiple sclerosis. In contrast to stroke, multiple sclerosis affects both sides of the body, so the left-hand side and the right-hand side. And that's the reason why we are showing the avatar again in the mirror. Then the patient gets the instruction to imagine the leg movement.
Relax.
Relax again. And after a few seconds, we are doing the contralateral hand. So this is done in the first session. And in the next session, we do exactly the opposite. So we switch the leg and the hand.
Left.
And in this way, we are able to treat all 4 extremities, which is important for multiple sclerosis. This is repeated again 240 times in one session. and patients are coming back for 30 treatments in this case. Here's an example. So on the left-hand side, you can see the multiple sclerosis patient before recoverix. On the right-hand side, you can see it after recoverix. And this is now the 25 feet walking test. You can also see she's using a walking stick. And on the right-hand side, you can just see how much quicker she's walking. And especially the freezing of her feet to the floor is much better. On the left-hand side, you can see she stops after every single step and freezes. This is a very typical problem for multiple sclerosis. And on the right-hand side, she walks continuously. And if you look at the 6 minutes walking test, you can also see before recovery, she needed about 35 she could do 35 meters, and then it was continuously improving. And in the post-assessment after recovery, she was already doing 101 meters, about 3 times more. Here's another multiple sclerosis patient. On the left-hand side, you can see he's using 2 walking sticks. And on the right-hand side, it's after recovery, and you can just see it's much faster. Walking pattern is much better, which is exactly what we want to achieve. And also the 6 minutes walking test shows it very nicely. At the beginning, he needed around 80, he could do 80 meters, and then it was immediately increasing, and now he can do about 150 meters. It's about doubled. Interesting for him was also that he didn't see any effect for the first 7 sessions. And then in session 8, suddenly the spasticity in his leg was reduced and the motor movements were coming back, and he was able to walk much faster and also longer. For the multiple sclerosis study, we looked again at the modified Ashworth scale to describe spasticity. Then we had again the video recordings, timed up and go test, and the 20-foot walking test that I showed you in the video. We had also the 6 minutes walking test. So in our rehabilitation center, they were just walking circles for 6 minutes, and we were measuring the meters. And then we looked also at the multiple sclerosis impact scale, the modified fatigue scale. And what you can see here is that in total, we needed only 24 patients for showing a highly significant result. And if we look at the p-value, then we can see that we have a highly significant result for the timed up and go test. So they have better coordination and also better balance, which is very important for these patients. They fall less often. For the 6 minute walking test, we see highly significant results, so they can walk much longer. Very interesting is also that the multiple sclerosis impact scale was highly significantly reduced, so they can do much more in daily life, which helps them a lot. And one of the most fascinating results is that the modified fatigue impact scale was highly significantly reduced. This is very important because neurologists actually don't have any effective treatment for fatigue, but recoverix showed a very nice improvement in fatigue. So we had, for example, a language therapist from Vienna, and before recovery, she was able to treat 1 child, and then she had to go to sleep because she was so tired. And after recovery, now she can do 6 children after each other, and afterwards she goes shopping. And another lady reported that she can now play mini golf for 90 minutes, which was impossible before. Another lady reported that she can play now cards for 4 hours before, and she was really tired after a few minutes already. And also the family members and friends are noticing this effect of much better fatigue. And we see also the 25-foot walking test is highly significant better, so they walk much faster. And of course, the spasticity is reduced. And also for MS patients, we see first of all that the spasticity has to go away, and afterwards the fine and gross motoric skills are coming back. And sometimes, you know, hands and arms are really spastic like that. And with the recoverix therapy, you can either go very quick that the spasticity is reduced and the hand opens, or it can also go continuously, that with every recovery treatment it opens a little bit more and suddenly the movements are coming back. This is exactly what we want to achieve. And we established also a franchise model which allows therapists to offer recovery treatments all around the world. And this is very interesting because we are bringing all the neurotechnology that you're needing for doing the therapy. We provide training, we provide marketing material, so just everything you need to treat stroke and multiple sclerosis patients. And you can see we have already many sites in Europe. We have plenty of sites in Southeast Asia and also in Africa and also in the US and Canada. And it's just growing pretty quick nowadays. So one businessman, for example, is now taking over Germany, and he will open a recovery center in every important German city. This is exactly what we want to achieve, so that every patient can get the recovery treatment within about 30 minutes driving distance, so that it's really easy for them to do it. And the next steps in our research are to look at Parkinson patients, because Parkinson have also these motoric limitations like stroke patients and MS patients, and they often have also a kind of tremor. And we notice both. So, of course, motoric skills are improved, but also the tremor is improved in MS and stroke patients. So last week I had, for example, a patient who reported that she never could have a cup of coffee with her left hand because of the tremor. She wasn't able to do it, and she was also not using a fork to eat with the left hand. And now after session 15 of recovery, she's already able to do with the left hand the cup of coffee, and she's also eating normally with the fork and knife with the left and right hand. So this is exactly what we want to achieve. And we also noticed that pain is reduced. So often stroke and MS patients have also chronic pain in the legs or hands. And very often this was reduced. And that's also the reason why we are looking now into chronic pain patients, if we can produce neuroplasticity and enhance the quality of life. So thank you very much for your attention. And I'm here for the Q&A session in the next minutes. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Christoph, for your sharing. And we are very happy that today Christoph is here with us for the live Q&A section. Hello, Christoph.
Hello, thank you very much.
It's amazing to see that the great improvement of patients' mobility. And we also look forward to see that your technology will be applied on the Parkinson disease. And we have received a few questions from our audience. So now let's take a look for the questions. The first question is that the audience noticed that there is a cool technology for stroke patients called Recovery X. And the audience would like to know more about how it works. First, how does this technology help patients improve their fine motor skills, for example, fingers? Second, why does the current stop from time to time during the treatment? The third one, could you share an amazing case study where some patients have completely recovered?
So RecoverX is using brain-computer interface technology. This means we are measuring EEG waves or brain waves while the person is doing motor movement imagination. So they have to imagine, for example, left-hand movement, right-hand movement, leg movement. With the BCI technology, we can pick it up when the brain gets active. And then we trigger in real time the stimulation of a real movement with electrical stimulation of the muscles. And this is repeated many, many thousand times. And this is producing neuroplasticity. So we are pairing cognitive processes with motor behavior by sending 6,000 times action potential down the neurons. And some of the neurons are damaged because of the stroke or other illnesses like multiple sclerosis. And the action potentials are not running correctly on these neurons. But we are producing many of these electrical fields, and neurons can actually detect electrical fields, and they are growing towards these activations. And in this way, healthy neurons are forming new connections. And this leads to better fine and gross motoric skills. Besides that, we see also an improvement in spasticity, because spasticity is also produced when the muscles don't receive information from the brain, and then the hand sometimes looks like that, because the brain doesn't control it anymore. And with the RecoverX training and the new connections, because of the neuroplasticity, the hand opens again, the spasticity is reduced, and then the fine and gross motoric skills are also coming back. There are many interesting case studies where we have seen a remarkable recovery. So just yesterday we had, for example, a young lady. She is about 15 years old, and she's had a stroke when she was a baby. So she cannot use her left hand correctly. And this is really problematic, because the hand at the beginning was just hanging down, so she couldn't take anything and she could move the hand but not use the fingers. And then we did 25 training sessions with RecoverX, so this means we needed about 18 hours for doing that. And afterwards she was able to get something between her fingers and to lift it, but this was more or less the result. And we did another 25 RecoverX sessions, and now the hand functions normalized. So now she's really good with her fingers and the hands. So after 50 training sessions, actually we produced a very nice improvement of her fine motoric skills. And of course, this is very important for a young lady who is only 15 years old to be able to use the hand again. Where we had also another patient who is about 60 years old. He had a stroke about half a year ago. So all the hospital treatment was done, all the rehabilitation from the government was completed. And his left hand, also in this case, didn't work properly. And then we did also 25 sessions, so the fine motoric skills got much better. We are testing this with the 9-hole peg test, so he has to put 9 little sticks into certain positions. At the beginning, he needed about 5 minutes for completing such a test. After 25 treatments, he needed 90 seconds. Then we did again 25 trainings, and now he needs only 30 seconds. This is like a normal person doing the test. So his hand function completely recovered after 50 RecoverX training sessions, which is exactly what we want to achieve.
Wow, it's very nice to hear about those successful stories. Okay, let's take a look on the second question. Our audience asks, is the RecoverX to be used under the supervision of medical professionals? Is it possible for the patients to do the workout by themselves, for instance, at home?
No, RecoverX is a medical product, and it requires the supervision of trained medical people. So we provide RecoverX to physiotherapists, occupational therapists, nurses, or physicians. They have to undergo a training, a careful RecoverX training in our flagship centers. So they learn everything, how to handle the EEG system, the brain-computer interface, the functional electrical stimulation, how to apply it. And then they are allowed to use it when they are certified RecoverX trainers. You know, they have to understand what's happening with these patients. These are neurological patients. So the risk of having another stroke or other complications is higher than for healthy people. And for that, it's very important to have medical persons available and overlooking the treatment.
Okay, I see. So we have the third question. Our audience would like to know, any home exercise need to accompany to the RecoverX treatment for the stroke patients for optimizing the treatment outcome?
Yeah, that's very important. So with RecoverX, we are treating the brain. So we produce neuroplasticity, so the brain gets healthier, but we are not taking care of the muscles or something like that. And when we are doing, for example, the leg therapy to get improvements in gait, then we see around RecoverX session 10 that the spasticity is reduced. And then sometimes people are walking a little bit slower, and sometimes they are reporting of more pain or a lot of pain in the legs. This is just because the spasticity is reduced and suddenly they are walking and the muscles hurt because they didn't use the muscles for maybe a couple of years and the muscles are very weak. And then they have to start to do some exercise training at home. So they can use a bicycle, they can go hiking, they can climb stairways. It's not so important what they do, but they have to train the muscles at home. They don't need us for that because everybody can do this independently. And the muscle training also grows very quick. And at the end, so after session 25, every single patient is actually walking faster and longer, and also the balance improves and coordination between the leg movements. So people have to train also at home. And we monitored also the long-lasting effects, and we know that 1 month later or even 6 months later, patients are again better after the RecoverX training, because when RecoverX is terminated, the brain is healthy, and then they start to move more in daily life, and this is providing additional training to the muscles and to the body, and at the end they are walking again better and faster.
Yeah, so home exercise do really play an important role for to do the rehabilitation. And okay, we still have some questions for you. Besides the researchers for different types of patients, what would be the plan for development of the technology itself? For instance, integration with VR or gamifications.
We are already using VR. So the avatar that we are showing with RecoverX in front of the patient is virtual reality. We are just showing it on a standard computer screen to make it as easy as possible for these people to participate. Of course, it would also be possible with a head-mounted display, for example, or 3D renderings, but this is for these patients mostly too overwhelming. So you have to consider that stroke patients are sometimes really old, 90, 95, or even 100 years. And they already get the EEG system on the head, they get the FES electrodes mounted. So you don't want to put another device on their head. And the training as we do is at the moment enough for them, so they can focus on the left-hand movement, right-hand movement. And this is exactly what we want to generate again. For children, we are already having some games. Because they like, of course, gamification. So in this case, we have some GIES cubes in the middle of the environment, and then a mouse is coming in from the left or right-hand side. And basically, you have to slap the mouse, that the mouse cannot steal one of the GIES cubes. And this is much funnier for children, and patients can actually choose what they want to do.
Wow, it sounds very interesting, and I really look forward to the development. And then we still have some questions for you. This one is asking about, could you share with us on the needs and adoption trend to use this device among different continents? Any differences in application or user feedback among them?
So we have RecoverX already running in North America, of course, also in South America, in Europe, in Africa, in Asia, and also in Australia. So on all the continents, we have installations running. Stroke patients exist everywhere. Also the number of strokes is increasing everywhere. And the treatment is basically the same, independently if we do it in Singapore, in Hong Kong, or in Honolulu. This is very nice. We have also a multi-language model, so that the RecoverX system instructs you in different languages what to do. For multiple sclerosis, it's interesting. In Hong Kong, for example, multiple sclerosis doesn't exist. So this is more prominent in northern countries where maybe there's less sunlight, but the treatment protocol in general is the same one. And we developed a franchise model, so that business owners, physiotherapists, occupational therapists, or physicians can just get all the neurotechnology from us. So they get the RecoverX system, all the standard operating procedures, a web page, just everything you need. And then you can actually start to treat patients in your city, in your district. And we are making very often contracts with business partners who take over a whole region. So this can be a whole country, like in Slovenia, we have a business partner who takes care of whole Slovenia. In Germany, we work together with 4 business partners, and they're covering whole Slovenia, for example. And then this is very nice because this person can actually grow the Recoverix treatment in the region and can also create awareness. And in this way, it works very nice. Ideally, we also want to bring Recoverix into the acute hospital. So within the first 8 days, people are staying in the hospital and they should already get the Recoverix treatment. Then they are transferred to the Neurorehabilitation Center. They stay there for 1 or 2 months, and we also want to have Recoverix there to get the treatment done in the standard therapy, and then people are released, and then they can go to the Recoverix centers which are close by to get the treatment in the subacute and in the chronic state to improve further.
Well, it's good to hear that. Okay, we still have one more question. It's about the industry. So the world is getting greater demand for neurorehab because of aging. Any recommendations for those who would like to join this sector to equip ahead?
The neurorehabilitation is, of course, a very important sector because up to now there's not really much done for the brain itself. Of course, there are many training devices, and of course, there's physiotherapy and occupational therapy. But for the neurorehab that we are doing, the number of repetitions is key. So for stroke patients, we are training them on 6,000 hand movement repetitions or leg movement repetitions. And this is producing neuroplasticity. And I mentioned just before that for some patients we did even 50 treatments, for some patients we did even 100 treatments, and we are seeing continuous improvements. So it doesn't terminate after 5 sessions. When you're doing more trainings, it's even getting better. And for that you need, of course, machines. So Recoverix is using, for example, motor movement imaginations. That's a standard therapy around the world. But normally the physiotherapist tells you, please imagine to move your hand. And you can maybe do this 20 times, and then it's getting too boring. With Recoverix, every patient does it 6,000 times within the 25 sessions. This is actually producing neuroplasticity, new connections on the brain. And for that, we need systems like Recoverix.
Well, thank you very much, Christoph, for your very inspiring sharing. I think it's almost time. Thank you for taking your time today. Keep in touch.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Hello, my name is Lise Pape, and I'm here to present Pathfinder, a device for people with Parkinson's disease. I'm from a company called Walk with Path, based in Europe, which I founded because my father had Parkinson's disease, and I wanted to develop products that could help in daily life. So what is the problem around Parkinson's? Parkinson's is actually a fairly common condition. It's the second most common neurodegenerative disease, and it's thought to be growing. Parkinson's significantly reduces mobility. There's over 10 million people with Parkinson's in the world, of which there's about 1.2 million people in Europe. Parkinson's is a pandemic that is expected to double by 2040. And as such, there's a huge unmet need for a very vulnerable population with a significant impact on their quality of life. Freezing of gait is a specific symptom of Parkinson's. So about half or more than that of people with Parkinson's have freezing of gait. And I'll come back to what it is exactly. People tend to describe it as feeling stuck on the ground. So if you imagine that you're walking in the house, you're walking from the sofa to the kitchen, suddenly during that journey, you can feel stuck to the ground. People also describe it as suddenly feeling glued to the floor and unable to make a step. So in that moment, the person is in movement, but their feet don't follow. The exact cause of freezing is unknown, but it's known to make it very difficult to initiate walking and to continue walking. And it's one of the main causes for falls and fractures. In fact, as you can imagine, by suddenly feeling glued, but the body otherwise being in motion, falls are very common. In fact, about 70% of falls in Parkinson's is due to freezing of gait. Pathfinder is the device we have developed to combat this. Essentially, it's a shoe attachment that you see here in the image. So the shoe attachment attaches on the outside of your own shoe using a rubber strap. And we've known from our existing users that Pathfinder helps to improve confidence in 92% of users, self-esteem in 100% of users, and willingness to try new things in about 85% of users. In fact, we've seen in some instances when we've tested the device that people who come with a cane or walker to try Pathfinder, they're able to continue walking without those tools, because those tools were primarily to combat the freezing of gait. So by providing this visual cue that Pathfinder shows, we can overcome freezing of gait and actually avoid using some tools for some patients. Here's a short video to describe what freezing of gait can look like. So this is an individual in their own home. As you can see, he's very much struggling to take steps and to move forward, which, as you can imagine, can be very debilitating to daily life and achieving independence and things that you want to do. So you will see here in a moment, he tries the Pathfinder device on for the first time. And this is in exactly the same setting. You can see his gait and his ability to walk is very much improved, and the steps become a lot more controlled. So we also do have clinical evidence for Pathfinder, where we have shown in a clinical trial published in Neurology that Pathfinder reduces freezing of gait by more than 50%. So that's both in terms of how many episodes you experience, but also the duration of it. So due to the fact that freezing of gait causes about 70% of falls, we estimate that Pathfinder can reduce falls by about 35% at least. So who is the right patient for the Pathfinder? It's really important to identify whether it's suitable for the person with Parkinson's. So there's a couple of questions to be asked. The first is, does the person have functional vision? Obviously, the device relies on visual cueing by the means of that green laser line, and therefore vision has to be good enough to see that. We also need to know that they have a functional cognition, because there's a learning that has to happen to be able to use the cue. And then they have to be mobile without a wheelchair, at least for the majority of the day. It's okay if some patients need to use a wheelchair at some moments. We know people with Parkinson's have changing needs, but of course they need to be able to walk generally, because that's when the device is used. In order to know whether they will react to visual cues, we need to know if they experience shuffling, freezing of gait, and do they have basically experienced Parkinson's related walking problems. We also need to know if they struggle to initiate walking, and whether the ability to walk upstairs is easier than across a blank floor. And that's a question because stairs are also a form of cue. Each step can be used as a form of cue. Similarly, if someone places a foot in front of theirs, if it helps to overcome the freezing, there's a very good chance that Pathfinder will also help that person. So the key benefits of the system is that it's hands-free. So as opposed to walkers and canes where you need to hold onto it, this can actually give more freedom in movement. We have step synchronized cueing. So that means that the cue comes on automatically, the cue being the laser line in front of the wearer. So there's no multitasking needed. Also, it can be used on all stages of the mobility journey. So the device can be used without any other device or with a cane or walker should you need that. The line is consistently provided for every step, and it can be calibrated to the wearer's unique step length. By that, we mean that the device on the front of the shoe sits on a ball joint, so it's possible to adjust the distance from the foot, but also the angle with which the cue is provided. So we know that the use of Pathfinder reduces freezing of gait, contributes fewer falls. We also can see that there's a better psychosocial health better mobility and confidence, and therefore better participation in the community is what we hear from our users, and therefore better quality of life, improved social inclusion, and reduced costs on the healthcare systems. A couple of testimonials from people who have the Pathfinder today. One says, I bought the Pathfinder for my mother, who is 82 years old and has big problems walking because of freezing of gait. She's now used the Pathfinder for a week and the results are amazing. She walks without problems and has been given a whole new life. This is simply a miracle. She will thank you so much for the invention. Life is wonderful to live again, she says. So as you can see, this person has actually significantly improved their quality of life. The second testimonials is, I keep watching the Without Pathfinder and With Pathfinder videos that my brother sent me this evening, and I'm weeping with joy. His wife, a doctor, got on the phone and said, it's a miracle. I know you will have had to put all your heart and soul and energy and determination to get your idea to market. And I'm very grateful. So that's another person that experienced the benefits of Pathfinder. At the conference, actually, in Hong Kong, we are working with a partner called Carry Medical. Carry Medical has a stand where it's possible to see Pathfinder and to try it. So I would very much welcome you to go and have a look at Pathfinder in person and talk to the team there about whether it's suitable for your practice or the patients that you have, or yourself or anyone that you know with Parkinson's disease. You will also see here my email, the website, and my phone number in case you want to get in touch with any questions. Thank you so much.